10 a.m. See, we're already doing good this morning. We're reminding people of things they need to do, all that. So, this is Alicia McGrath, and I almost forgot who I was this morning. I forget that you all get to. We deal with you all a lot via email, but we don't get to talk to you a whole lot, and things like that. And if I didn't think I would scare you all, I would, or not be able to figure out how to do it, I'd put the video cam on this morning. See, look, they're getting their Harry and David orders. Good. So see if we accomplished anything this morning. We got Harry and David orders. And
of course they're gonna mow.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's like, I think, below freezing still here. I don't know. But we have the lawn company, or not the lawn company, finance and administration, doing yard work. So if you hear noise in the background, that's them outside of the window doing stuff. So, but let's get back to what we're all here for this morning, and that is adding it up, budgeting for Kentucky Public Libraries. And my also further hope, which is not necessarily a bad thing, that I've had it in my brain, is that hopefully after this webinar I won't be singing Added Up by the Violent Femmes in my head anymore. I've been doing it for like the past month. But with me today is my partner in crime, Valerie Edgeworth. She is going to be handling the chat. So please, any questions, comments, technical issues that come up, please chat those in. And she will handle those. And she is texting today in green, which is appropriate. It's money. I'm wearing a green and black shirt in honor of budgeting day and money. So I'm glad you all could join us today. Probably some of y'all that are used to doing budgets, I'm probably going to tell y'all stuff y'all already know, but hopefully you will learn something new. And I just want to say right now, you all that deal with the large-scale budget stuff that goes into public libraries, I've learned more in the last month than I have in a long time. You have my sympathy. I just have to deal with our LSTA budget, and it is so much easier because I just be like, may I have this much for this? I don't have to deal with depreciation of assets and all this kind of stuff. So my hat is off to you all that have to deal with it. So we're going to go ahead and get started today. So what I'm hoping to do today, my objectives is to identify and let you all know some Kentucky specific procedures that you have to do in regards to your budget. And for some of this, you all, it might be reminders. One of the things I'm going to kind of hit fairly hard is the importance of doing a community analysis before you create your budget. And I'll talk about more of that in a little bit. A few budgeting policies and procedures you might want to make sure you have, or maybe look at updating your all. We're going to talk mainly about operating budget because this is your day-to-day budget. Briefly, just touch on a capital budget. It's a very important one, but one that you don't have to deal with too much unless you're doing a major, longer than a year, megabucks project. And then talk to you all a little bit about doing a budget presentation. Everybody, for the most part, I don't know if you all necessarily do one for your, trustees per se, but it might be something you want to consider when you have to go at least share your budget with the county judge executive. As you all know, I'm going to say this before I forget it. The county judge executive, if you're a taxing district, a special government entity, SPIGI, I don't know if I'm hitting everything, you have to present to them, but they don't have any approval authority. And even though some of them think they do, they don't. But you still have to present to them. So just give you some tips maybe on that. So, all right. Some things that are Kentucky specific that you all need to know about doing your budget. Of course, it has to be a balanced budget. So that's very important. You can't have any negatives. You can carry over income, which is always a good thing. There is kind of some guidelines on you do need to set back some reserves. And I know one place, like say Michigan, for say, I think they recommended 2 months, but ours is usually a little bit longer time than that. It's more 6 months if you want to do that, or you can follow what the Kentucky Department of Education does, and they suggest 2% of your budget be held back. So, and of course, as all of y'all know, DLG, or the Department for Local Government Regulations, they have quite a few things that you are required to file for them, and we're going to talk about that here next, because we're going to talk about some dates to remember in regards to DLG.
Question from Renee. Did you say 10% for KDE?
Well, 2% of your budget. That's what I think the Kentucky Department of Education suggests for school districts. So I know if I'm getting what Terry told me correct, you can do either the 6 months reserve for operating expenses, or if you want to do what the Kentucky Department of Education suggests, which is 2% of your operating budget to hold in reserve. But as you all know, you don't want to hold too much into reserves in your reserves, because you get in trouble for that as well. All right. In regards to Department of Local Government requirements, which they're starting to get a whole lot tougher on this kind of stuff, so I highly advise you not to run afoul of the Department of Local Government. And if you need any reminders on this, y'all can contact Carly Gill. She used to be in CE. She's now under the Commissioner's Office in Compliance. So she's the one that you all get a lot of emails and stuff from, and she's just trying to make sure everybody's on track and turning in their stuff when they need to. So dates to remember. And unfortunately, I started this by calendar year, not by fiscal year, so kind of should have done it probably the other way. But as of May 1st, your Uniform Financial Information Report, or as we like to call it, your UFIR, needs to be completed and submitted to Department of Local Government. And then on June 30th, you need to have all of your revenue accounted for, where you're going to budget, where it's going to go. That's where the balanced budget comes in. And then you need to have your annual budget approved, and that, of course, the approval is by the board, not by the county government, unless that's if you're a taxing district. And then it's also the latest date that the budget amendments, if you've made any throughout the year, can be posted to the Department of Local Government. The budget amendments, if you make any budget amendments, you have to submit those to the Department of Local Government, and you can do that throughout the fiscal year. But if you have any budget amendments, the latest that you can submit those is June the 30th. But if you amend your budget, you have to let Department of Local Government know. Yes, a previous fiscal year. See, yes, Susan, that's previous fiscal year. That's why I should have done this starting July 15th instead of by calendar year. So I apologize for the confusion. Because actually what you get here is on July the 15th, your budget for the federal fiscal year. I'm used to LSTA. We operate under two, as a state agency, we operate under two fiscal years. We operate under the federal fiscal year and the state fiscal year. The state fiscal year, which most of you all operate under, runs, of course, from July 1 to June 30th. So the budget that you and your board approve needs to be submitted to the Department of Local Government by July 15th, and that's going to be your current budget that you're going to be operating under from July 1st to June 30th of that year. And then September 1st, your previous fiscal year, you had the budget's year-end actuals, which is SPIGI Form 101 to the Department of Local Government. And you also, by September 1, have to provide your annual financial statement and also publish the location where public can come in and look at your adopted budget, your financial statements, and your most recent audit as well. So, to remind me, and like you said, that's one thing I forgot. You all please chat in comments too about how this presentation can be made better as well, because all this basically, of course, is based on research. You are the ones doing the nitty gritty. So y'all let me know how this can be improved. So if the dates to remember didn't scramble your brain enough, when we get into more of the budgeting information, they will definitely be. But hopefully we're going to move on to something a little bit easier. Well, after this one. Just some step-by-step instructions, and I apologize for so much wording on the things, but I figure with budgeting, this is something that more words might be better than less, because I want y'all have something to be able to refer back to. So up there in the top, if y'all haven't found it already, on our website we do have a link for steps for the budget process for here in Kentucky. It doesn't go into super detail, but it gives you enough to kind of get started. So here's some step-by-step that's based a little bit on this budget process, and also based on a couple other resources that I looked at. Of course, first thing you want to do before you even start creating your budget is look at your strategic plan and your community analysis that you've already done to see where your money resources should go. These two things, along with the library's mission and goals, is really going to drive, and it should drive, where you're going to put the revenues that that you all receive. And as you all know, a lot of that is taxpayer money. And we all know, and even us as taxpayers too, we know how we feel about making sure that taxpayers' money is spent wisely and in the best, for the best resources possible. So as always with everything, review your budget policies and procedures. And as I say with everything, please have policies and procedures for everything you do. And definitely for your budget. So if you don't have any budget policies and procedures, please get them. So ASAP. Then you need to determine all of your financial resources that are going to pay for your operating cost, that also address your strategic plan and your community's needs and wants. Then you're going to create a draft budget, and you're going to present that to the board. And then, of course, you all and the director and the board work together to create a final budget. One of the things we're going to talk about just briefly a little bit later, give you more information. One resource really stressed, including a budget calendar. Create a budget calendar for the fiscal year that says who's responsible for what and when it needs to be done by. And this is something that everybody in the process needs to follow. And then you need to file your, and actually your UFRA, let me check on this, with the Department for Local Government, might be your most current one. And then you need to make your presentation to the county judge executive and the fiscal court. Again, this is just kind of an FYI type of thing. If you're a special taxing district, you need to do the presentation, but they don't approve it. That's up to the director and the board. So again, as you all know, monitor your budget, make amendments as needed. If you have to make amendments to your budget, you need to file that amended budget with the Department for Local Government anytime you make an amendment. And as you all know, with the budget, you got to keep on top of it. You can't just approve it and let it go. You need to keep track of what's going on with it. So Next thing we're going to do, and one of the first things in our steps, is doing a community analysis. And some of you all might have done this, say, in your strategic plan type thing. But if you haven't done a strategic plan, you can still do something. You can still do a community analysis. And what you want to find out in doing this, and a community analysis is also good not only for your budget, but it's also good for knowing what your library needs to be collecting in its physical collection, on electronic resources collection, and also what kind of programs that you maybe need to be offering. So community analysis really does address a lot of things that should be the driving force behind what you're doing at your library. And like I said, budget is just one of these things where community analysis is going to come in handy. So you want to find out who lives in your community, what their interests are and why, what do they want from the library, and also what would improve their lives. Because some people probably can say, maybe articulate more so what could improve their lives, and then it's up to you as a library to figure out how can we help that person or that group improve their lives. So you've got to do sometimes a little thinking outside the box. And the importance of doing an analysis of your community is it does spur change. You might think that you've been offering something all along that everybody in your community wants, needs, and come to find out when you really ask them, no, that's not something that's helpful to them. So again, doing one gives you evidence that, hey, we do need this, support that, yeah, what we're doing right, proof that maybe we need to change things, and then surprises. Like I said, you make assumptions sometimes about what your community needs and wants, but if you don't ask them, you don't really know. And where it comes into play, really important with the budget, is it helps tell the library story to everybody, to your board, to your legislators, to your stakeholders. So it's really, community analysis is where when you are doing your budget, you can say, hey, this is why we put our money where we chose to do, because when we asked our community, this is what they said they need. And I guess some people can argue against that, but it would be really, they'd be really hard pressed to say, oh, you're spending this money because, most of my constituents said they wanted it. What craziness is that? It's hard to argue against that. So again, it gives you some power, some ammunition for why you're putting your money where you are. And that's what the next point says. And also lets you know where you need to prioritize different things in your budget, maybe what you need to spend a little bit more money on and maybe a little less money. So it does help you prioritize and focus on the areas that you need to look at in your budget. So some of the community data that you need, of course, you want the numbers stuff, which I know all of us groan about. I do too, because if I have to do math, it's not a good day. But the statistics are really important. Yeah, that's I can't even help my daughter with Algebra 1, so I'm sunk. Statistical here, population, what the economy is like in your area, the languages spoken, educational level, different things like that. And we have a really great resource at the University of Louisville. It's the Kentucky State Data Center. And there's their website there. They take things from the U.S. Census and they focus it on Kentucky specific information. And I meant to give them a call and didn't get around to it. Sometimes what they used to be able to do in the past is they could kind of give you an analysis of, say, your area of the state, your county, the trends, the things they thought, might possibly happen in the future. So don't be afraid to reach out to them if you gather all this statistical stuff and you're like, I don't know what to do with it now. What does it all mean? The Kentucky State Data Center should be able to help you out with that. And then another thing is, of course, the anecdotal things, things that you observe by, looking around your library, watching interactions with people and different things like that. if you go out in the community, things that the community members are saying. Um, of course, you can look at your own circulation data, see what's trending. Same thing with the databases, what web pages are visiting most often, things that are happening on social media interactions. And of course, anecdotal too. You can get this. You can, ask your patrons to do a survey. You can have a paper one in the library for walk-ins. For social media, you can post a link there to a survey there. You can do focus groups. Just talk with people coming into your library, or talk with the people that might not necessarily walk through your doors. But as I was doing some research for something else the other day, those patrons that don't walk through your doors but are using, say, like Kentucky Libraries Unbound, things like that, they call them cyber patrons. So they're still your patrons, they just might not physically be there in the library. Ask them, what they want, what they want to see from the library. Simple formula down here: numbers plus stories equals better funding decisions. So it creates better funding decisions, and hopefully also creates a defense or an explanation for why you're spending the money the way you are. So just some resources here for statistical information. Of course, U.S. Census, American Fact Finder, State Data Center. There's also, and I can find links for all the Civics Technologies. It's Community Connect tool. There's Melissa Data Free Lookups. It's on the web. And then you can also ask local agencies and organizations that are there in town, and even, of course, your state government agencies that gather statistics and things like that, you need this information. Of course, anecdotal, just talking to your patrons. Of course, you can do something more formal like a survey, focus group. And like I said, neighborhood immersion, just get out there and just see what's going on in your community. It's really knowing about what's going on in your community and what people are doing and wanting to improve their lives. Here's a lot more just links here. Like I said, I'll send this out in a PDF with the live links in it, but just some great places that I didn't even think about until I was doing some research, that you can find out more information about your particular area of the state and your particular county. So, and you also not only, like I said, want to analyze your community, but you want to also analyze your library. You want to look at your building, see what things around there maybe need some attention and maybe some money towards it. Of course, you also want to look at your collection, see who's using what, maybe what you need more of, what you need less of, what patrons are asking for, different things like that. So these are just all things you need to consider when you're considering where you're going to be putting your budget dollars. Then, of course, too, your most valuable asset, in my opinion, is your staff. So you want to definitely look at your budget in relation to your staff. Educational levels, is there going to need to be money spent, on some college classes, training, different things like that. Of course, their salary and their benefits. If y'all do seniority, length of service, their workload, and like I said, opportunities for training, education. Then you want to look at management. If there's some things there that you need to, improve or put some money into doing things differently. And then when you're allocating your budget, just kind of look at different things like, is it adequate? You can compare yourself with other libraries and decide what you're going to do. So there's a lot of analyzing. This is all before you even do the budget. So next thing you need to have in place is some policies and procedures. And why do we need these? And basically, policies and procedures, they guide almost everything you do at the library, particularly at a somewhat administrative level, but down to everything. So for the budget, policy and procedures usually address some certain things like they establish your fiscal year, what your fiscal year is going to be. They also talk about who's responsible for what and who has the authority to do certain things with the budget, like who has the authority to approve the final budget, who has the authority to amend the budget, things like that. And I'm talking this budget. I'm talking kind of as a upper higher level thing, but it also applies to any of you all, of course, that say, have managers, branch managers that do, say, maybe a budget for their branch, or you have heads of departments that maybe do like a budget for children's services. Policies and procedures for that level is also really good because, again, it's going to spell out what people, who does what and who's responsible for what and who has the authority. And also, like I said, the methods for doing things. If most of you all haven't already, I highly, highly, highly recommend you looking at the state auditor's 32 board oversight recommendations. There's a link right there. A lot of them, some of them deal with different things other than the budget, but a lot of them either directly or peripherally deal with policies and procedures that you need to have in place that directly or indirectly relate to doing your budget. So definitely look at that. Things to cover in your policies and procedures. You need to identify your budgeting steps, responsibilities, timetables for when things need to get done, and you can also incorporate these into your budget calendar. Again, identify people that are responsible for doing certain things, who needs to prepare and disseminate the budgeting package, and who's responsible for doing draft budgets, not only as an overall library budget, but also, say program specific if you decide to go that way, or department or branch specific budgets. You need to identify what goes into in the format of the budgeting package, and how many drafts are going to be created. You're going to do like 3 drafts before you come up with the final budget. You're only going to do 1 draft and that's it. Just make sure you have this down in writing somewhere. And again, need to also identify who's going to do and how you're going to estimate certain budget projections, and also who's able to approve proposed changes in the income and expenses of the budget, and then who and the method for making adjustments to the budget. As with everything you do in the library, you need to communicate it. You need to let the appropriate people know, and you need to train on it. You need to make sure people know the policies and procedures, understand it, know that they exist. And we even have that here at KDLA too. We need to always work on our communicating and training on things as well. So some more policies to consider when under the budget umbrella is an investment policy, capital assets policy. I won't read all of these to you all. I know, like say whistleblower protection, some of these are also covered under that 32 board items from the auditor. And if you want to know more about this, there's a great resource at the end. The Library of Michigan has a 92-page PDF document that is very detailed about doing budgets for public libraries. This is where I got quite a bit of information. So they talk about all of these, and they also give sample policies for all of these as well. So next thing we're going to talk about now is operating budget. And of course, operating budget is your overall fiscal year, day-to-day operating budget, what you're going to do from July 1 to June 30th, what money you have and how you're going to spend it. So, of course, preparing for actually doing your operating budget. Of course, you've already done your community analysis and all that good stuff, so you know in general what areas maybe need to be beefed up, what needs to stay the same, different things like that. So in preparing for the process of creating your budget, you need to figure out what your budgeting strategy is going to be. You need to develop goals and guidelines, and this is also important to at the program or service level budget as well. You got your budget calendar again, any kind of forms you're going to use, materials, and any kind of instructions on how the budget is going to be created. And then again, for managers that deal with different aspects of the budget, or they're in charge of creating a budget for their particular branch or department, they need to know what the budgeting goals are and what the process is going to be as well. Then you get to the creating the budget. So you prepare your draft budget. And again, you also want to have a draft program and unit budget if you decide to do that. Review the draft budget, revise it if you need to, and then you need to decide at what point you're going to take that draft budget to the board. So you want to prepare that, submit it to the board, and then with the board, you all review it, revise it as needed, and get that final budget approved. Alrighty. And just some different types of operating budget. There's the line item, which details each thing that you're going to spend your money on in your budget. And then a program budget is just based on, okay, this is what we're going to do for, collection development, adult services, things like that. Then there's something called a zero-base budget, which a lot of libraries don't use, and it's also kind of recommended. Maybe some of them you don't want to use it. And this is basically where you start out. You don't look at, for most budget prep, also part of it too is looking at the last maybe 2-3 years where you've spent money at. So look at the last 2-3 years to help you develop your next year's budget. Well, with zero base, it pretty much says, nope, we're not going to look at that. We're just going to start at zero for everything and build it from there. So like I said, I just want to let y'all know that's out there, but it's not extremely recommended for government budgeting. Some different budget development types there, which we all wish we were in this one, is steady state. Just basically everything is going to continue as normal. There's not going to be, well, I think we would like the significant increases, but we definitely don't want the significant decreases. Controlled growth is that you're saying there's going to be an overall whatever percentage increase, and this is what, again, where policies and procedures come in to place, because you can put that is in controlled growth, we're going to say there's an overall 2% increase each year in the budget. And then selected growth is just saying, no, it's not going to be the overall budget, it's not going to increase by a particular percent. A particular budget item or budget items will increase. Then the dreaded evil word, reductions. So overall reductions, of course, is an overall percentage decrease in the entire budget, or there are selected reductions, which again is particular percentage decrease in a particular budget item or items. So just a little information there. One thing for your operating budget that you want an awesome, incredible accounting system in place. This is how you're going to collect your information, your budget information, and keep track of financial information. So make sure you have an accounting system in place, you know what it is, and you understand it, which might be easier said than done, because when I was reading about this, it was like, oh my goodness. So they used a term, and again, this is all in that Library of Michigan 92-page document. You need to have a basis of accounting. The first one there, cash basis. This is, they likened it, of course, to what most of us do for our personal, is your checkbook. Cash in and cash out. They don't really recommend this, for doing your budget unless you have, if you're a really small library and you just don't have, a lot of assets and different things like that, different liabilities. But actually, for government, you are required to do a modified accrual accounting system and a full accrual accounting system. And this goes back to those financial statements that you have to file. So both of them, like I said, are required for government funds. For a modified accrual accounting basis, this is that revenue is recognized when it's both measurable and available. And again, some of this is almost like reading legal documents. And it's usually, basically your revenue is in a particular time period and it's used to pay for liabilities or your expenses. This is usually about 60 days is what, if it's government funds, 60 days. And then your expenditures or expenses are recorded when incurred. And this means that when the goods are received or services rendered, not when they are paid or the invoices are received. So it has to do when you receive your revenue and then when you expend your expenditures, if that makes any sense. It kind of does. You always have to read it a few times. And then your full accrual, this is what is used to report on your financial statements. And this is kind of like the full picture. It includes your current and non-current assets, which we're going to get into just briefly. All of your current and non-current liabilities. It measures your total economic resources rather than just what's current. So again, full accrual is like the overall big picture. And revenue is recorded when it is earned, and expenditures are recorded as soon as a liability is incurred. So it's a little bit different than the modified accrual. And again, it's not the easiest thing to understand. That's why I highly recommend you read and reread and reread again the Library of Michigan document. Okay, a couple different things you can do with your revenue, which in other words means your income coming in. You can break it down by the source of funding, your expenditures, which of course your expenses. You can also group those in categories with line item costs underneath those. Like I said, personnel costs, you might want to, like I said, get down to more detailed. Any of your general operating costs, contract fees, and collection costs. And I do want to stop right here because I just remembered something I meant to tell y'all a while ago. The budget that you all file that is required, the information that's required by the local Department of Local Government, that is considered your official legal budget as far as local government is concerned. But for actual operating budget, day-to-day, month-to-month, fiscal year budget, you want something that's a lot more detailed, that is monitored, closely, things like that. So even though what you file for at DLG is considered your legal budget, you want something there at your library that's a lot more detailed than what you provide to DLG. So usually the types of funds that you could put your revenue and expenditures in is general fund. This is the most common. This is where a lot of your daily operating income expenses will be under. Then you also might have some special revenue, and this is kind of like grants, any kind of donated money, anything that has legal or regulatory provisions to it that have certain things tied to how that money is to be spent. And you might have a debt service fund. This is if you are paying back long-term debt. Say you have a capital project that you're doing, you might want to have a separate fund category for your debt service. And then I just mentioned this. I don't think it's very common, and I don't know if a lot of y'all might not have them, but in case you do, another different fund you might want to have is a private purpose trust or permanent trust types of funds. But like I said, general is going to be your biggest one. Thank you. Valerie just got me some cough drops because I'm starting to get that little tickle in my throat. I usually don't talk this much. I promise. So, all right. Now, this is some more information with your operating budget. There are all types of this. There's types of funds, types of this, types of that. So now what we're going to talk about is the types of accounts that you can have set up in your operating budget. So here's a list of them here. Your assets are going to be, of course, things that you own that have a certain value. Liabilities. And I just put these out here. It's kind of, they're not the easiest things to explain. But again, that Library of Michigan does a lot better job. Then, of course, the most easy ones here are revenues and expenditures, expenses. I'll put a little note off here to the side. With your accounting system, I don't know how many of you all have like a separate person that, you know, does all of your accounting stuff, but I just want y'all to be familiar with maybe what they're doing if you don't see it all. Your general ledger with your accounting system is going to summarize all of your accounting transactions, what's coming in, what's going out. And just, of course, want to stress to everybody, maintain supporting documentation of, you know, your accounting transactions. Please don't throw receipts away. Just keep everything and keep it well organized. And so just some other terms here, real easy. Your current assets versus your non-current assets, and same thing with liabilities. Current means anything usually a year or less that you can readily use. Non-current, of course, is going to be for assets and liabilities anything, any assets or liabilities that are that are long term. So, and then the deferred outflows and deferred inflows is anything that is there for outflows and inflows for a future period. So that's, of course, current and non-current are things that are immediate and maybe next year. And then deferred outflows and deferred inflows are more of a future, looking into the future. And real simple way to say it is current assets are used to pay for current liabilities, because these are things you can get your hands on relatively easily that we're going to be coming in and going out within that fiscal year. Alrighty. Now we're going to talk briefly here. Usually, like I said, there'll be two types of budget that you'll be dealing with. Of course, like I said, the most common you all deal with is operating. But for any of you all that have a big expense, you all are going to have to do some, have a capital budget. Different places that I read sometimes put a capital budget items as part of the operating budget if you had a capital budget project for that year. Other places said keep it separate. This is something definitely I would talk to your financial person about, your accounting person about, and see what's the best thing to do. So again, operating is your year-to-year budget. Your capital budget, again, is going to be for a big ticket item. It's usually going to be longer than a year. Capital budget's usually multi-year things. Again, it's irregular. It's just whenever a big building thing or, big equipment purchase pops up, renovations, things like that. So again, one suggested is keep these budgets separate, and that makes sense. But to throw something in there that makes it a little quirky is also read that debt retirement, basically paying off your financing for your capital project, it may be in as part of your operating budget. So that's kind of muddies the waters there a little bit, but just let you know that's usually the debt retirement. Paying off some of that capital project might be part of your operating budget. Oh, it still didn't change it. Oh, well, sorry. I did a little revisions to some slides, and this one wasn't, the changes didn't take. They're supposed to be a lot bigger. But for capital budgets, there's usually two types that go into this. It's capital improvement and capital equipment. And of course, before you venture down the capital budget road, you really want to think about this. This is not a snap decision type of thing, because it's going to be, like I said, a long-term project. So whatever you're thinking about doing, whether it's, like I said, renovating, building a new building, upgrading all of the technology, things like that, you always have to go back to, does what I'm wanting to do fit into your strategic plan, or is it something that the community really needs, wants, will benefit from? Because again, everything money-wise, you've got to have a reason for why you're spending that money. And it has to be a really good reason. So you also need to calculate the return on investment. And basically this is it going to be worth it to do it? So if you answer yes to the first one and the second one, then what you got to think about is how your capital, either improvement or equipment, is going to be financed. Excuse me. Cough drop hasn't quite kicked in, but it's doing a much better job. So all of this will drive how you're going to, I'm fine. Yeah. How you do your capital budget. So, now, you've done your operating budget. You know what you want to do. Now you either want to present it to your board or present it to your county judge executive in your fiscal court. So again, y'all already should have done most of this, so you're good. Of course, you should have done your homework. You should have done your community analysis and know what your community wants. If you have a friends group, talk to them, get their support. Have them advocate for you. Also go out there in the community and form some partnerships. That way you have some base of support. And forming partnerships, also, like I said, if you can't correlate a direct monetary value, like, oh, so-and-so is going to pay for this, you can at least say, well, we don't have a financial commitment for them, but we have, say, like a manpower commitment or something to show that you're trying to spend the money well, that you're trying to, involve your community and, excuse me, Also save money by forming partnerships. So then you need to prepare your presentation, however you're going to do it. You just need to have a good spending plan to show how you're going to spend your money, where you're going to spend it. So if you have where in your budget's high performers or what needs more attention, and you have a justification for it, you have a reasoning for requesting an increase in that particular area of the budget. If you need more money, you need to explain how this money is going to make improvements. You need concrete examples, analysis. Show that you've thought this through, that you really are not just willy-nilly spending money left and right, that you've really made a thoughtful decision about where that money is going to be spent. And one of the things, of course, is weigh more money towards things that will make the most impact in the places most needed. Be ready to discuss any changes. Give clear, precise answers, and try not to say, I don't know, or hesitate too much. Of course, if you really don't know, please don't make up an answer. This is almost like answering patrons' reference questions. Say, I'm not sure, but I will find out. So, but definitely don't lie about it or make up stuff on the fly. So, and your actual presentation, start with the lowest level of detail and add layers if needed. And this is from a resource on ALA's website, which I have it at the end as well. They recommended not giving details unless it is asked for. Just basically start with the basics. Of course, a great way to show some of this information is using graphs and charts. At a minimum in your presentation, you need to show the dollar amount changes with brief explanations for why. Service differences, why those are going to change. And then staffing differences, and why those are going to change as well. And again, you can let them know this is how you assess the changes, what's driving these changes. And again, only offer what is needed as it is needed. And just make sure it's accurate. When you're doing your presentations, some do's and don'ts. Be a good listener. Actively listen to any kind of feedback that you get. Also know how to say no if there's something you can't or will not do because it is not what your community has asked for. And know how to say no and give your reason why. It's not what our community says that they want. That's not how they want us spending our money. And of course, with everything, compromise if you can. And always stay positive, stay upbeat about it. Don't let them ruffle your feathers. Don't under-prepare. Please try to prepare as much as possible. Think about questions that might be answered and rehearse how you're going to, questions that might be asked and rehearse how you're going to answer them. Don't hem and haw on an answer and do a bunch of, if you don't know the answer, just let them know that. And don't commit to a specific budget number. You can always say, well, let's think about that. And don't ever fake an answer. This is one place where you're like, okay, I don't know. And then don't pick a fight with anybody. That never goes well. Yeah, Susan, there you go. Try to control your facial expressions too. This is one I would have a hard time with. So, like my teenage daughter, I like to roll my eyes a lot too. So no picking fights at the fiscal meeting, please. So. All right, we're getting ready to wrap it up here. Just wanted to end with some overall budgeting best practices. Again, your budget should reflect how the library returns value to the community, aligns with community priorities. As you all know, in this day and age, it's not just simply enough to say, we're the public library, we're awesome, even though we know we are. We have to prove why we're of value to the community that we're in. You know, it's no matter how you feel about that, it's a reality. Everybody is competing for money. So you have to show why you deserve to get what you get. And you do that by tying it back to you're doing what your community wants you to do. So another thing, understand how to use comparative data to support your budget. And you can either compare, like say, you know, oh, this is our budget the last, 3 years, the changes. You can compare it to similar libraries. They could be in your state, they could be outside your state, or whatever, just, like I said, similar size, similar populations, different things like that. And ask your colleagues, too, for budgeting advice. And I think almost all of us would give good budgeting advice. But, if you need some help, director's listserv, regular listservs, throw it out there, see what people have to say. And, of course, work with your community's representatives. See kind of like maybe what kind of budgets they're looking at, what, they'd like to see. And you do need to, I know you can't give the budget your constant attention because you all have lots of things fighting for your attention, but you do need to not let it just lay there and think it's going to take care of itself. You do need to monitor it year-round. Make sure that you're not surprised when something happens. You either have a budget shortfall or something like that. You need to know what's going on with your budget. What state is it in? And if you need to, look at the youth of your community. Always plan for the future. Your budget is, yes, this is what we need for this fiscal year, but you also need to be looking long term as well. And of course, try to keep your budget message positive. I know that's extremely hard in this day and age. Usually around here, it's a major meeting killer. So they've gotten so they save it till the end. Don't announce it at the beginning. Save it till the end. But anyways, and again, this is vital. Get that patron support. Those people coming in the door, your cyber patrons, even your non-patrons. Like I said, you got to do some marketing and some selling of the library. Unfortunately, it's just the way it goes these days. We have to justify why we are in the community. It's not just a given anymore, unfortunately. But that's the reality. All right. So, that is all I have for you all today. I probably could do several webinars on budgeting and break out each different thing. And there's still a lot of information that I did not pass along to you all that I meant to. So, that might give me something to look at. If y'all could stand any more budgeting webinars. But here's some resources. Again, like I said, I'll send this out in a PDF with clickable links, but these are some places that I went to for information. And this way back one, that's the Library of Michigan, that I've the 92-page PDF. Highly recommend everybody read it, reread it, and reread it again. Mainly because it has some really great information, but mainly, and also another thing is, it's going to take you a few times of reading it to really fully even start to understand the complicated accounting things that go into monitoring a public library budget. As you all know, because you all do it every day, it is just astounding. So hopefully that'll that'll help. Or like Susan said, might have to go take an accounting course. I think that's probably would benefit everybody that has to do budgets, just to understand maybe what your accounting, your bookkeeper person is having to do. So, all right, that is it for us today. We'll hang around here if y'all have any questions, comments. Like I said, I'll also be sending out an email with the PDF of the presentation, your certificate of attendance, and your survey. So please let me know how this webinar can be improved, particularly those of you all that are out here doing this. You have the practical application, things like that you have to do. Please let me know what type of information that I didn't give to you all today that you all need on this particular topic. Again, Val and I are going to stay around, so if y'all have any questions, comments, let us know. If you're ready to go, X in the upper right-hand corner will get you out of the course. And I want to say thank you all very much for attending, particularly on a cold Friday morning, everyone. Have a very good weekend. Go back to eating your yummy quiches and Harry and David items, and we'll just sit here in Frankfurt and be jealous. But that's okay. So thank you all very much as always. Really appreciate your all's time and attendance. And with that, we will sign off. And thank you, Doreen.